Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFO Fantasy Show. It is Wednesday, November the 12th. I hope everyone's having a fine Wednesday. I'm managing fantasy editor of dailyfaceoff.com, Brock Seguin. I'll be joined later by fantasy analyst and DFO contributor Michael Beebs. Bondy. It is Waiver Wire Wednesday here on the show, so we're going to be breaking down all of the best waiver wire pickups. I've got a couple of goalies. He's got some skaters. We got some deep league targets. We got a banger league target. So no matter what league you play in, we should have something for you today on this show. But before we get into it, let's get into the news and notes, because last night was an absolute bloodbath on the ice. We'll start in Toronto, where they lost two key members to injury last night. Austin Matthews left the game with a lower body injury, and Anthony Stolarz left with an upper body injury. The Stolarz injury, people weren't sure if he just got pulled because he was playing poorly again, or if he was hurt. The Leafs came out and said there was upper body injury for him. Joseph Woll is expected to be back soon, so he is a priority pickup right now. We're not really going to talk about him on today's show in depth, but obviously if Stolarz is going to miss any time at all, and even if he doesn't, Woll is a guy that, you know, is certainly needs to be picked up if he's still available in your formats. We're not going to talk about him today because he's close to 40% rostered, but if you're in a league where he is available right now, whether Stolarz misses time or not, Woll is a priority right now because Stolarz just has not played well. And if he's hurt, Woll could see the lion's share of the work as soon as he gets back. So he's a priority pickup that we're not really going to cover in depth, but make sure you keep an eye on his name on the waiver wire right now. Now let's go to Colorado, where Valeri Nichushkin left Colorado's game with a lower body injury last night, did not return. Then to Vancouver, where he missed a couple games, came back, started last night, didn't play very well, and Thatcher Demko left Vancouver's game with a lower body injury. In Ottawa, Thomas Shabbat left Ottawa's game with an upper body injury. So just a bloodbath on the ice last night. All these guys fantasy relevant. Really tough night. Expect and follow along dailyfaceoff.com for all of your injury updates on those players as we get news on them. Now, a couple updates for Wednesday's games. Zach Hyman will not play on Wednesday, so they will be without Zach Hyman. They will be without Ryan Nugent-Hopkins again, but his season debut will likely come either tomorrow, the second half of a back-to-back in Columbus, or Saturday in Carolina. So Hyman will be back this week, it looks like. And then the Lightning, they've just been ravaged by injuries. So Victor Hedman, obviously the main one on the list here, is day-to-day, questionable to play Wednesday. By the time this episode comes out, he may have already been ruled out or ruled in. We shall see. But he is among some other names. Ryan McDonough has also been ruled out for today's game, next couple games, but they also have Pontus Holmberg. Nick Paul's not quite ready to be back, so they've got some injury issues going on in Tampa. So Ryan McDonough and Victor Hedman possibly out would be a huge issue on their blue line. McDonough out for sure, Hedman not necessarily ruled out just yet as the time of recording this. But one good piece of news for the Lightning is they are expected to get Anthony Cirelli back tonight. So as many injuries as they have, at least they'll get Cirelli back in on that second line. But boy, shorthanded up front in that bottom six, shorthanded on the blue line. Have to expect players like Kucherov, Point, Gensel, Cirelli, Hagel will be leaned on extremely heavily this evening. So if you're owners of any of those players, should be in for a solid night against the New York Rangers. That's going to do it for the news and notes for November 12th. Now we will move it right along to Brock's lock of the day. We stayed absolutely scorching hot last night for our third win in a row, and it was our seventh win in our last 9. So 7-2 in our last 9. Morgan Geekie over 2.5 shots last night brings our record to 10-5 on the season. If you're betting $100 units on these Brock's locks, you are up $459, 25% return on investment percentage right now. It's just been scorching hot, so we're looking to stay hot. And I've actually got 2 Brock's locks in the same game tonight, so could be an even more fun night. As always, the Brock's lock of the day is presented to you by our friends and powered by 5v5hockey.com. We've been doing a promotion this week where if you want to win a free month of 5v5 Hockey Premium, so you get access to all these betting tools, all their DFS tools, all you got to do is comment in the YouTube comment section your favorite bet of the night. Now, it has to be within reason. Can't be going like minus 300 odds, but within reason, your favorite bet. If that bet hits, every bet you get right this week is an entry into a draw next Monday for a free month of 5v5 premium. So let's see if you can pick the right prop tonight. It can be a money line, it can be a total, but any bet within reason. So tonight, let's take a look. We've got over 2.5 shots on goal here. Both Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz rank at the very top, and that is who we're going to be targeting tonight. We will start with Nick Schmaltz, who Schmaltz on the season has hit this mark. It's over 2.5 shots on goal, minus 105. He has hit this mark in 68.8% of his games, 11 for 16. That is the equivalent of minus 220. You're getting it at minus 105 tonight. During that stretch, the entirety of the season so far, he's averaging 3.1 shots on goal per game and 5.2 shot attempts per game. So he is hitting this more often than not. You're getting great odds on it. Then we've got Clayton Keller, who has had a bit of a slow start to the season in terms of his shot volume, but he's really starting to come on. So we like Clayton Keller again tonight at over 2.5 shots on goal. He's minus 130, so slightly worse odds, but he has hit this mark in 6 of his last 8 games. That is a 75% hit rate, or the equivalent of minus 300. You're getting it at minus 130 tonight. Over that time, he's averaged 3.4 shots on goal per game. He's averaged 7.4 shot attempts. So he is shooting the puck a ton right now. I like both Keller and Schmaltz tonight, and the main reason for that is obviously both hitting this prop with regularity. But tonight they face the Buffalo Sabres, who are giving up the most shot attempts against in the NHL and the 4th most shots on goal against this season. They are also extremely banged up. The forward group is very thin, missing Rasmus Dahlin on the blue line. And I also, a little bit of a narrative, not really as much data as I usually use here, but I also don't think it hurts that Utah is returning home tonight after a really rough road trip. They won just one of their 4 games. They've lost 3 in a row, and they've lost 5 of their last 6 games. So they should be a little fired up tonight, getting back on home ice, trying to get back in the win column after a blistering start to the season. They've really hit the skids. So I think it's a big game for Utah tonight. They're heavy favorites. 2 of their best players in Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz should have great matchups tonight against the Buffalo Sabres. So just to recap, Brock's locks of the day are Nick Schmaltz over 2.5 shots on goal at minus 105 and Clayton Keller over 2.5 shots on goal at minus 130. Now, I would be playing them straight. I'm not a huge fan of parlaying them together, but if you so choose, you think Brock's lock is going to stay as hot as it's been, go 2-0 tonight. If you parlay them together, you get plus 220 odds right now. So you've got basically 3 bets tonight. Let's see how it goes. Brock's lock of the day, looking to stay hot. As always, powered by 5v5 Hockey. So comment your favorite bet of the day, and you could be entered into a chance to win a free month of 5v5 Premium. Now, let's welcome in our friend and colleague, Michael Beebs. Bondy, how's it going, bud?
It's going good. I was just chilling, took a nap in the waiting room there while you absolutely crushed on the news. I will say, Brock, you labeled me as a contributor. I just kind of have to back myself here. I'm the manager of fantasy news and social media here at Daily Faceoff. So I just wanted to give myself my props where they're due. But last night was crazy. We saw 5 big injuries, as you mentioned, and that's going to lead to some pickups, which is huge. I know not to pump our own tires, but we've mentioned some pretty good names over the last couple of weeks. So it's going to be fantastic to kind of see some new names come out here. Not fantastic. You hate to see it through injury, but will be good to see some pickups come around here. But can't wait to talk about some new names today. And we actually had to change around some categories. Brock didn't mention it because we've kind of taken care of bangers, we felt so far, or at least the lower owned players there. And because of that, we're going to give you a couple more deep owned players today. So I don't think people are too sad about that. I know there's been quite a reach about it online, about us kind of taking care of some players that might not be, or that will be available in those really deep leagues. So that's what we're here for. And without further ado, should we give some juicy names here, Brock?
Yeah, you mentioned it. We're going to give some new names today. But when I looked at the waiver wire, before we get into all of today's names, there's a couple of names that I want to reiterate that I've talked about over the last couple of weeks that I was going to just bring up today and do a deep dive on. But we've already talked about them. You already know who they are. So I'm just going to rename them really quickly because none of them have been picked up enough as I would like to see. Evander Kane from the Vancouver Canucks, he's still just 34% rostered. He's on the Canucks top line with Pettersson and Garland. The underlying metrics on that line have been just unbelievable since they've been put together. Kane's shot volume has absolutely skyrocketed in November. He's averaging 4.8 shots on goal and 7.5 shot attempts during that stretch. So 34% rostered. Almost all of that is in banger formats in almost all of my standard category leagues. Evander Kane is still out there. I actually picked him up this morning in my league of record. He's just been spectacular. His teammate, Jake DeBrusk, is 22% rostered, so a little bit more readily available, but I mentioned him a couple weeks in a row now, and all he's done is score in 4 of his last 5 games. I mentioned his shooting luck. He was, generating a lot of expected goals, generating a lot of shots on goal, but wasn't necessarily converting at the rate we think. The shooting luck has definitely turned in a big way. He's still top 50 in the NHL in individual expected goals, so I expect him to continue to score at a good clip. And then lastly, I don't know what Jack Roslovic needs to do to get his ownership over 40 or 30 even percent. He's still just 25% rostered. He's an absolute elite pickup. He needs to be rostered, honestly, in 100% of leagues right now. He's that good. He has 9 points, 4 goals, 5 assists in his last 8 games. He's averaging 2.6 shots on goal, 4.8 shot attempts per game. And oh, by the way, he's skated with Leon Draisaitl. He's on the Oilers' top power play unit, which is basically where you want to be. Over his last 7 games, he's averaging over 19 minutes per game. Like, he legitimately needs to be rostered in almost every single format. The fact that he's still available in 75% of leagues makes absolutely 0 sense. So,
how did we watch Ty Ratty get higher own percentage than Jack Roslovic years ago when people didn't even know what this guy could do at a training camp? Now we've seen what Jack Roslovic can do here, and his ownership's not going up. I grabbed him on Monday, just in our league of record, or the league that we basically go off of here, Brock, and it's quite deep, and I could not believe he was there. Got the game-winning goal. We love you, Jack. Thank you for making us look right.
But let's get into now our 10 pickups. So like I said, I've got a couple goalies and some deep league targets. Beebs has got 5 skaters in total. I'm going to start with the goalies, and I'm going to start with Yaroslav Askarov, who's up to 29% rostered from the San Jose Sharks. Now, you might not believe me, but the Sharks have actually been defending pretty well. At 5v5, according to Sports Logic, they rank 13th in expected goals against per 60. So above average defensively. The issue is they've struggled on the PK a bit. So overall, they have in all situations XG of 3.55, which is 21st in the league. So below average overall when you factor in the PK. But at 5v5, they've been really, really doing a pretty good job insulating their goaltenders so far this season. So yeah, Askarov is, we always talk about with goalies, it's more of a team's position. He's in an okay spot. It's a team that's playing pretty well. The offense has been pretty decent. Macklin Celebrini super good. So the situation is probably better now, and definitely better now than we probably expected it would be preseason. And then you factor in that Askarov has just been on an absolute heater. He has won 4 straight games with a 123 goals against average, a 963 save percentage, and an absolutely absurd 7.3 goals saved above expected. That is the second best mark in the NHL since the beginning of November. Now you also have Alex Nedeljkovic. He's away from the team for personal reasons, so just want to wish him all the best. But that opens the door from a fantasy perspective for Askarov to start at least the next 2 games this week, and those matchups are fantastic. The only downside is those are on busy nights, so you probably won't have a spot in your goaltending lineup for him. But the matchups are so good that you could start him over one of your goalies that are already on your roster if they have more difficult matchups. He will face the Flames they rank 29th in the NHL in expected goals for per 60. And then he faces the Kraken, who are 32nd, dead last offensively in terms of XG according to Sports Logic. So those 2 matchups for the rest of this week are great. It's unclear what the rotation will look like once Nedeljkovic is back, because to his credit, Nedeljkovic has also played very, very well as of late. But it's pretty evident that Askarov is the goaltender of the future in San Jose. The youth movement is in full force here. I think they're going to want to get him as many starts as he can handle without overdoing them. I think there's a chance where he starts maybe 66% of the games moving forward. It's kind of 2 games for Askarov, 1 for Nedeljkovic. So he's making an extremely strong case for a larger share of this workload. And if Nedeljkovic stumbles at all, I think Askarov's a guy that could start a ton of games this season. So really liked what I've seen from the Sharks this year. I've really liked what I've seen from Askarov. I talked to Stephen Ellis in the preseason about some of his favorite rookies, and he mentioned Askarov is just like nobody really talks about just how good this kid is and how good he can be. So I'm really excited about his potential moving forward as long as the Sharks continue to defend well. But Beebs, who is your first waiver wire pickup of the week?
Before I do that, I will say I just went to look in all 4 leagues I'm in, and Askarov is out. So if you're watching the video and you saw me let out a bit of a swear there on my mute, that was exactly why. No, I love this kid, Brock. I think he's in for one now. My pick here, though, is coming from another team that a lot of people stayed away from fantasy-wise, and that is the Chicago Blackhawks. It's Andrei Burakovsky, currently playing power play 1, playing line 1 with Connor Bedard and Tyler Bertuzzi. He has 14 points in 15 games played this year. 7 of those are goals. But he's had 10 points in his last 7 games, 5 goals, 5 assists, 16 shots on goal during that time. And it appears he might be the key to unlocking Connor Bedard's true offensive potential. He is reaping the benefits basically the whole way alongside of Bedard. And we've seen kind of Burakovsky take his game to the next level since getting moved up to this top line. He's averaging 2.29 shots per game in his last 7 while on this hot streak. And Bedard, during that same streak, 18 points in 8 games, while Tyler Bertuzzi has 9 points in 8 games during the same streak. So everyone in Chicago, one is eating right now. And while it's happening, I want in on the feast. The group has formed an incredibly formidable trio that's led both the offensive units and power plays to success alongside another player that I'm going to mention later here. Burakovsky hasn't really enjoyed this type of offensive success since he was last in Colorado in 2021-2022, where he had 22 goals and 61 points. That's incredibly rosterable in most fantasy leagues, and it shows that he can get to that point when used in the right situations, like Chicago's top 6. The 30-year-old could easily be in for a career year this year where he surpasses that 61 points if he continues to score at this rate. I'm not expecting a 10 points every 7 games type deal because that would put him close to 100 points. But if he does get closer to 70, you're getting an absolute steal here for a guy who's currently, as mentioned, available in 79% of leagues. It appears, too, that Chicago's willing to let Burakovsky kind of let his wings out here as he's averaging a career-high 17.28 this year, just quite a bit more than he's ever seen in his career. And if he could do so along Bedard, we are watching a true breakout. Everyone else is talking about Connor Bedard and how awesome it is to see. And it really is. But while it's happening, we want in on the guys who are getting the feedback or the fallback from all that. And that's what Burakovsky is. I think he is a fantastic ad right now. He's in all positions to succeed in Chicago, and I don't see him going anywhere soon there. So give me Andrei Burakovsky.
Yeah, and obviously Connor Bedard is really taking his game to another level this year, and Burakovsky, like you said, has been a good co-pilot there. My next pickup is a goalie as well, but before we get to Dan Vladar here, just want to mention we just got news from Frank Saravalli that it sounds like Thatcher Demko, who I mentioned off the top in the injury news, is going to miss 2 to 3 weeks potentially. Again, still early; it hasn't been confirmed by the team, but if Demko is going to miss any time, that obviously opens the door for Kevin Lankinen to be the number 1 goalie in Vancouver. That's a team that's really starting to play a little bit better, and he's only 11% rostered. So once again, probably not going to have enough time here to do a deep dive on Kevin Lankinen. But if Demko's going to miss 2 to 3 weeks, Lankinen, obviously that opens the door. He's been a little inconsistent this year, not as good as he was last year, but obviously we know that he's got that game in him. He's a decent NHL goalie, and if you need goaltending help at 11% rostered, he's widely available. But let's get to Dan Vladar. I mentioned Vladar a couple times already this season, going back to it, but that's just because the Flyers have been legitimately elite defensively. They are first in the NHL in 5v5 expected goals against and are above average on the penalty kill. So Vladar is extremely, extremely well insulated, and he has turned that into a 6-3 record with a 218 goals against average, a 917 save percentage, and a 77.8 quality start percentage this season. He has been great in 3/4 of his starts and then some. He is facing just 25.3 shots per game, which just shows how good defensively this Flyers team is. But that has kind of some positives and some negatives, especially in points leagues where you get points for saves. He's probably not going to have these like massive week winning performances, but in category leagues, he should be a split stabilizer for you. And has still modest upside in those point formats as well. So Vladar's had a couple of shaky outings here recently, but by and large, he has been very, very strong. So I like Vladar a lot just as a guy that's going to come in and help you, give you your save percentage and your goals against average a little bit of a boost. So 31% roster, Dan Vladar for me. Babes, who you got next?
This is one I've been excited for. Was waiting for this player to return from injury, and one where, if I mentioned other episodes, if you follow us on socials, you can usually get ahead of the rest of the general population. But Matt Zuccarello out in Minnesota, currently 17% owned. And as I mentioned, you can get out ahead of him most times if you follow us, because we suggested him. I believe he was 2 or 3 days away from returning, and I got him out there when he was about 7% owned. So you had about 93% of leagues he was out there. But Matt Zuccarello currently occupying power play 1 and line 1 in Minnesota with Kirill Kaprizov. He's got 2 assists in 3 games played since returning. And Zuccarello quietly returned to Minnesota's top offensive units last week, and it appears that most of the fantasy world kind of missed it. He only jumped up 7% in ownership since that game that he did play, since he started at 10% on November 7th. And he returned value by getting an assist in that first game, as we've come to expect from the Norwegian winger. The 38-year-old is just below a point per game in his last 4 seasons, which will surprise a lot of people, as he's averaging 66 points in 71 and a half games played throughout his previous 4 campaigns. So he is known to miss some time due to injury, but when he is in the lineup, he does perform. Zuccarello is more than likely to contribute most of his value in the assist category, as was shown by his first point in that game versus the Islanders on last week on the 7th. But with him currently lining up with Kirill, wow, this one's killing me, with Kirill Kaprizov and Marco Rossi on both Minnesota's top line and power play, it's going to be hard for you to find someone in such a fantasy fruitful position below 20%. If you add in his previous pedigree and just everything Zuccarello's kind of done with Kaprizov in his career, then this is someone that you might want to jump on now before his ownership goes up, because it's going to be a player where it does go up and it does not go down if he is healthy and in the lineup. Zuccarello might not help you a ton with shots on goal, but at the same time, we are looking below 20% here. And if you can grab a guy who, as I mentioned, 66 points and averaging 71 and a half games per season in the last 4 years, that's pretty freaking good. Extrapolate that across 82 games, and you have a mid-70s point guy. So I like Zuccarello a lot here. I think he's a steal. And if you are in one of those shallow leagues where you can just spot start him, if you're in need of some points, you're in need of a couple assists, this is a fantastic play if he's out there and you need him. He's proven it time and time again. He's 38 years old. This is nothing new to Zuccarello. I'm very happy to jump on the late season starter through injury. There's always one every year, and here we are.
Yeah, and obviously Kaprizov and Zuccarello are good buddies and have played together a ton and have pretty good underlying metrics together in the past, so I don't expect that to change. I'm going to stick in Minnesota for my next pick up here. That's Jesper Wallstedt, 13% rostered between the pipes. After struggling a little bit through his first 3 starts, Wallstedt has turned in back-to-back great performances last week. He stopped 25 of 27 in a win against the Islanders, and then turned aside all 36 shots that he faced in a 2-0 shutout win over the Flames, with Philip Gustafsson really not playing well. Another pretty poor performance last night against the Sharks. Only gave up 2 goals, but only faced like 17 shots. He's got a 3-7-2 record with an 888 save percentage in his last 12 games. So Wallstedt is making a lot, is playing well enough to play more moving forward, especially given Gustafsson's struggles thus far. Defensively, the Wild aren't as good as they have been in years past, but they have shown some signs of improvement over the last couple weeks. Obviously, getting a little bit better offensively, getting guys like Zuccarello back in the mix as well. So, I think Wallstedt, I prefer Askarov and Vladar right now, but I do think it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him to carve out a larger role with Gustafsson in front of him, but I think at the very least he can turn this into a 50-50 split if he continues to play well, and then could carve out a larger role moving forward. So I think he is definitely number 3. I even would probably pick up Kevin Lankinen first right now over Wallstedt, just because you're going to get more starts out of him. But I think Wallstedt, if the other 4 or other 3 are gone, makes a lot of sense the way he's playing right now. And the Minnesota Wild, as I mentioned, seem to be turning a corner a little bit. Let's get to your third pickup, Beeps.
Yep, and before we do, I just want to say it was such a letdown to see Wallstedt start bad, and Askarov. I think a lot of hockey fans, we kind of hope this is the future of goaltending, or is supposed to be, and to see them both come out of the gate realistically not even bad, they came out very ugly. It's awesome to see them turn around here, and for the game of hockey and for fantasy. So these are both great suggestions. But while we're focusing on high-end prospects, why not look at Artyom Levshunov out in Chicago, currently 11% owned, occupying power play 1, their third defensive unit, but he has 9 points, all assists in 15 games played this season. Alongside the Bedard, Bertuzzi, Burakovsky connection, there has been one glaring change to Chicago's top power play that has made quite the world of difference, and it's Levshunov joining the top unit last week. He's rewarded head coach Jeff Blashill with 4 power play points in his last 3 games with this, and he looks fantastic. It looks like it's kind of given him that surge he needs to prove that he belongs in the NHL. The 2024 second overall pick, yes, second overall pick, so he's got quite the pedigree. He comes with a successful offensive background prior to the NHL and is proving that his offensive prowess is there by scoring 7 points in his previous 7 games, which is what got him to this 9 points in 15 games to start the season. The 20-year-old's fantasy relevance may be capped until he can learn to shoot the puck a little bit more. He does only have 12 shots on goal through his first 15 games, but we're kind of looking for someone you could have as your fourth D-man that has that potential to break out. And to see this type of offensive production with only 12 shots is exciting because I can almost guarantee that Artyom Levshunov is going to shoot more throughout his career. This is just an early feeling out the NHL. And when he does, more success should come. In the meantime, enjoy your free assists. Enjoy the points that are going to come. There's a lot of guys who the kind of debate is, and the line seems to be Justin Falk or Artyom Levshunov right now. And the way I'm kind of explaining it is we know what we're getting with Falk. With Levshunov, the sky's the limit here. We don't really know where it could go. And it also has a higher chance to kind of explode. If Sam Renzel starts taking off again, he could push Levshunov off that top power play. But until he does, if Levshunov's succeeding up there, like I mentioned, the sky's kind of the limit. We've seen him help Bedard take his game to that next level, help Bertuzzi and Burakovsky. And if that can continue, there's no reason why he shouldn't be in the middle of everything in Chicago. Again, second overall pick. So this guy is meant to run this offense one day. And I'm just trying to jump in on it early. We have seen his ice time, as we can see in the graphic here. He's averaging 15:34 on the year, which is very, very abysmal, very ugly. We've seen his ice time dip to 11:51 just a few weeks ago. But lately in his last 4 contests, he's averaging 18:34. It's a lot better for Levshunov lately, and that's what we're jumping on. I think you got to get on this one early. I'm not super excited in a standard 10-team league, but when we get to a 12-team league and on, that's where I'm starting to have eyes for this guy, and it's only going to get better here. Exciting times in Chicago. Who knew your second overall pick would be the guy to do it, to get things going on the back end?
Yeah. Talked to some beat reporters from Chicago early in the season, and Sam Renzel was kind of the front runner. Levshunov still has his offensive game is certainly there, still has a little bit of defensive work, but I think that that's starting to come along, and you can see that, as you mentioned, with the ice time increasing to north of 18 and a half minutes. So I think the one good thing, and the reason I liked Renzel preseason and why Levshunov makes sense now, is this isn't just like a 1 month explosion for this power play unit. Even when they were shit last year, this was a top 7 power play unit in the NHL. They basically only scored on the power play, didn't do anything at 5v5, but they're top 7 again this year in power play conversion rate. So I expect this Blackhawks power play to continue to play very well, and Levshunov makes sense while he is quarterbacking that top unit. Let's get to my first skater of the day, and I mentioned him on Monday, Matthew Wood from the Nashville Predators. I mentioned him as a streaming option on Monday, so hopefully you picked him up before Monday's hat trick in New York. The rookie winger has been the Predators' most consistent player on a night-to-night basis as of late, and is finally starting to receive more playing time. So coming into the week on Monday, I was like, yeah, like he's playing well, he's scoring, he's shooting, but he's only playing 13 minutes tonight. He scores a hat trick on Monday. They ended up just kind of giving him more and more and more ice time as the game went on. Played a season high 17:09 in that game. Now, what I really like about Wood and why I really liked him at the start of the week was now at midweek, they have 2 late night games left this week. They play both Friday and Sunday. They play against the Pittsburgh in both of those, against the Penguins in both of those games in a home and home. The Penguins are below average defensively. It's going to be a high event matchup in both of those games. So I love Wood right now is a short-term pickup with long-term upside. So at the very worst, you pick him up for this week, you give him another 2-game tryout if you missed out on Monday. You pick him up, you give him Friday, Sunday. If it goes great, you hold him. goes poorly, you drop him. No big deal. So I think with the way that Wood is playing now, he's got to get more ice time. We saw him take a few shifts towards the end of that game in that top six, couple with Stamkos' line, couple with Forsberg's line. So we'll see where he ends up in this lineup. You have to imagine he's going to be in that top six. So I really like Wood. I think the one thing that I need to mention and why I'm maybe a little bit more hesitant in his long-term value is he is shooting 21.4% right now. He has scored 1.5 goals above expected, has an on-ice shooting percentage of 17%. So the pace is pretty unsustainable, but if he does see that increase in ice time, that will help offset some of that regression coming his way. He's done very well in 12 and a half minutes or 13 minutes of ice time. If he sees 17 to 18 minutes a night in that top six, that will help offset. And then obviously just getting the chance to play with better players will improve his stock as well. So I really like him as a short-term option in this weekend. I'm sure we'll talk about him more with Dylan tomorrow as a weekend streaming, one of the best this weekend. So love Wood short-term. Hopefully he can carve out a much longer long-term role in this Predators offense and your fantasy team. Beebs, let's get to your first deep league pickup.
Doesn't it just burn your bunzo that Eric Holla is the guy standing in on power play 1 instead of Matthew Wood? I think we all want to see him take that next step. And to do that, get Holla out of there, bring in Matthew Wood. That's what I want to see personally. But no, actually, Brock and I almost came to fisticuffs over who would get Matt Wood this week. So we both support this pick. I'm just kidding. We could never come to fisticuffs. It would be verbal fisticuffs. But no, fantastic pick there. And with my lower owned pick here, I had a backup. Let's not worry. It is out in Toronto, Nicholas Robertson, currently 5% owned. Line 1 after yesterday and power play 2. He has 10 points in 16 games while getting a very minuscule amount of ice time, much like Matthew Wood. But Nick Robertson's been performing exceptionally well as of late. He has 9 points in his last 9 games. Yes, point per game in his last 9. And despite getting minuscule amounts of ice time, as mentioned, he's been rewarded with an upgrade to Toronto's first line with Austin Matthews and Matthew Knies. Unfortunately, Austin Matthews went down with an upper body injury yesterday, so this whole thing could be kibosh if Toronto flips their lineup, if that is a bad injury. But we don't have any updates right now, so for the sake of hoping for the best, we're just going to assume he's playing with Austin Matthews and Matthew Knies next game. Both very, very solid fantasy players. The 24-year-old former second round pick, his 53rd overall, has been waiting to kind of spread his wings and let loose ever since he arrived in Toronto 5 seasons ago in 2020, 2021. It's kind of crazy. He's been there quite a while. He may finally be in that position to succeed after all these years and getting scratched in and out of the lineup, which none of us wanted to see. Robertson picked up an assist during his first line debut on Tuesday, so he's already cooking up there. But Toronto also lost Matthews, as I mentioned, so we'll cross that bridge when we have to. Just keep an eye on where he lands up after all this injury news comes out. But despite never averaging more than 12 minutes a game, Nicholas Robertson has finished above 14 goals in his last 2 seasons. Not that that's that impressive, but it does show that he has an ability to take his game to a next level. And if he is in the right position, he could succeed. Robertson was drafted and brought to the Maple Leafs to score goals and put up points. He's not a grinder. He's not another type of player. And he proved that back in his junior career by putting up 55 goals and 86 points in 46 games with the Peterborough Petes. That's absolute crazy efficiency, and one that Toronto would love to see in their top 6 this year, especially as they're kind of looking for someone to fill in for Mitch Marner still. He is, as mentioned, while he's on line 1 here, I think he is under-owned, but it's a player that you got to keep an eye on. If he's moved off, and he's likely going to get scratched. So while he's occupying this line, it's kind of like Brock said with his Matthew Wood pick. It's a great for now pick, has potential upside for the future if he does stick, but at the same time, we could be here in a week, and I could be telling you to kick rocks on Nick Robertson. Wanted to bring it up, though. A lot of people get really excited when people play with the best players in the league, and that's what we got happening right now for a very strong offensive piece out in Toronto. So let's see Nick Robertson take his game to the next level. A few more shots. He's just below 2 per game, but he's also averaging below 13 minutes a game. So if he gets above that, the shots will come. Therefore, I'm expecting the offensive success to continue, and it's great to see him doing well lately.
Yeah, are people excited when people play with the best players in the world? Because Roslovich is still 25% rostered. Let's get to my final pickup of the week, and that is going to be Viktor Arvidsson. Again, deep league target here, 3% rostered from the Boston Bruins, left wing, right wing eligible. He's really starting to look a lot more like the player that we saw earlier in his career, especially when you compare it to what we saw with the Oilers last year. His shot volume has been absolutely fantastic, averaging 3.3 shots on goal and 6.5 shot attempts per game over his last 10. So he scored 5 goals during that stretch, and I think he should continue to find the back of the net with regularity if that shot volume continues. If we do the math, and trust me, I've already done it for you, they've got 64 games left this season. I'm not saying you're going to hold Viktor Arvidsson for the whole season, but let's just do the math for fun. They have 64 games left this season at 3.3 shots on goal per game, and you average out his 10.9 career shooting percentage. Arvidsson could score 23 goals rest of the season. Pretty good production. Going to be a near 30-goal score when it's all said and done, just to kind of give you an idea of where he's at right now. The Bruins don't have any late night games remaining this week, but all 4 of their games next week are on light night. So he is going to be, spoiler alert, one of my favorite streaming targets on Monday's episode. So you might as well get ahead of it. Might as well, if you got the roster spot, add him in the lineup right now because he's going to be just an absolutely fantastic streaming option next week. There are 3 teams, the Bruins, the Sabres, and the Hurricanes, that have 4 light night games next week. So Arvidsson, Logan Stankoven, Josh Doan, Jackson Blake, like those are going to be the top streaming candidates next week. So you might as well get ahead of it right now with guys like Arvidsson. I really like Blake. I really like Stankoven too. If you want to get ahead with any of those names, per the Hurricanes, the Hurricanes do actually have the best schedule. Not to get ahead of myself here, of the 4. So Stankoven, Blake, Arvidsson, really good streamers next week. And then obviously if this continues, they could turn into Arvidsson could turn into a long-term hold here. So yeah, I didn't think I'd be talking about Viktor Arvidsson after the way last year went, but the way this year has started, I think he makes a lot of sense. Love the shot volume. A friend of the show in years past. So Viktor Arvidsson, 3% rostered, is my final pickup for week 6.
No, I love that shot volume. That's fantastic. As I'm sure many people on the show know, I bring up shots a lot. So that is quite fantastic. I am going back to our old format here. I'm going to focus on a banger league target because everyone needs one. I got Eetu Luostarinen out in Florida, currently 5% owned, occupying line 1 and power play 2 for the Panthers. He's got 7 points in 16 games this year, which may not seem like the best, but let me work. With banger league pickups running kind of thin over the last few weeks, as I mentioned, Luostarinen really stood out as an obvious under-owned player, both on the rise and contributing in nearly all fantasy categories as of late, which is great to see. 27-year-old has been on quite an impressive 9-game stretch as of late, where he has 7 points, all 7 this season. He has 21 shots on goal, which is good for 2.3 per game, and 24 hits, which is good for 2.7 per game. During that same stretch, Luostarinen is averaging 17:21 time on ice, which is a 32-second increase from what he's seen in his previous career high. Just goes to show more usage usually comes more success. And with that usage, he earned himself the top spot on Florida's top line with Brad Marchand and Anton Lundell. It's not quite as sexy as some of the other players we've mentioned playing alongside some other guys, but it still is a top line in a banger league, and this guy is available in 95% of leagues. Luostarinen closed out 2024-25 with 183 hits and 80 games played, so he knows how to throw the body, and it just shows that he'll do whatever it takes to get in the good books for Paul Maurice, who doesn't want to do that, and when that happens, he gets rewarded with first-line minutes. The Wingers' overall season numbers may look very underwhelming, but he's proven that with his better usage and when he gets moved in the top 6, he can be a contributor, as we've seen by the 7 points in 9 games. And if you put that type of points with the hits he's providing, that's pretty, you're not going to find that, especially this low owned in leagues. These are the targets we are looking to go after. Luostarinen's proven before that he does have an offensive bone in his body as well. He had 17 goals and 43 points as a 24-year-old in 2022-23. So there's a bit of pedigree here. I think right now, while he's occupying that top unit, he could be a very sneaky banger league target, and you might as well enjoy it while he's there. I know personally, I like to run one spot where I kind of bring in the hot name, and then let's call it almost a streaming spot. The streaming spot right now in my banger league is occupied by this body, and it probably won't go anywhere until he loses his top line spot. So really liking Eetu Luostarinen right now. And thank you, Florida, for giving us a banger option after providing quite a few the last couple weeks. So good to see we have a few more.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just so few bodies in Florida right now. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that line is in danger of being broken up anytime soon. I mean, you could argue if it's their first or second line, but regardless, doesn't matter. He's in the top 6. He's playing big minutes. It's a line that we saw have just an outrageous amount of success in the playoffs last year. It's carried over this year. They have been quite good together. 2.97 expected goals for per 60, 30 scoring chances. They're scoring 4.5 goals for per 60. So they're putting the puck in the back of the net. They've performed just as well as we kind of thought they would after seeing them in the playoffs last year. And yeah, that is going to do it for this edition of the DFO Fantasy Show. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, please smash that like button, hit the subscribe button as well. And don't forget, if you want to earn a chance to win a free month of 5v5 Hockey Premium, comment your favorite bet for Wednesday, November the 12th. So thank you so much. We'll see you guys back here on Thursday, where I will be joined by Dylan Berthium, and we go over the weekend streaming targets. Spoiler alert, Matthew Wood will be heavily featured. Thank you to Beebs Bondy for joining me today on this Waiver Wire Wednesday. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Till then, cheers.
Yeah, my favorite bet is McKinnon for Hart, McKinnon for Rocket, McKinnon for everything.
Thanks for watching this video. If you want more great fantasy hockey and betting content from myself, Carter Hutton, Matthew Barnaby, and the rest of the DFO analysts, make sure you subscribe to the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel today and never miss a minute.